You can listen to The Professional Left wherever you get your podcasts, on Netroots Radio, or at our website, proleftpod.com, where you can also contribute to this podcast. There's a PayPal button at our website, or you can mail us a letter and or contribution at P.O. Box 9133, Springfield, Illinois, 62791.
This is the podcast for September 23rd, 2025. It's not safe for work.
Recorded live from the Cornfield Resistance, where we realize the news has become a bad imitation of an old Henny Youngman joke, as interpreted here by the great Rose Marie.
I walks into a very classy restaurant, and I orders pheasant on the glass. I had eaten most of the glass and was just about dipping down to the pheasant. When I noticed the sign that says, "Watch your hat and coat." Well, I watched my hat and coat, and what happened? Somebody stole my pheasant.
It's The Professional Left with Driftglass and Blue Gal.
It looks like we missed the rapture, Driftglass.
Oh, we always get invited, and we always plan to go, and then we something always comes up. It's so weird. It's so weird.
As I mentioned to several colleagues at Crooks and Liars today, the rapture sounds really good if it means we never have to hear another Fox News clip.
Well, they're not going in that direction when they leave.
Oh, the Fox News clip people, right? No.
I hate to break it to them, but
my dad always said that, heaven was an invention so that your enemies would go the other direction, and that's entirely how he felt about it. I want to hat tip Rhea on Blue Sky, who said that rapture announcements get really big when a bunch of Christians want to escape accountability.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it?
Absolutely true.
We could do 2 or 3 hours on the origins of that stupid idea about meeting the meeting in the air and what it meant because of the arrangement of how cemeteries, graveyards were arranged in the Holy Land during the old days, and why it had to be sort of jimmied together to make the prophecies make sense.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Nothing. The rapture is entirely bullshit. There's nothing at all about it.
There's nothing scriptural about it. It's not scriptural, as Bible Bitch would say.
Yes.
I also liked, there have been several commentators today who have pointed out, this is not related to the rapture, but it is related to the sort of evangelical nonsense of Trump being the savior of the country.
Right.
And Trump is in charge, and all the Republican senators and congressmen just have to bow to him.
Yeah.
And so forth. And the corollary to that is Trump's responsible for everything.
No.
And you're saying no.
No.
But the fact is, Trump came out today and announced that he was canceling his meeting with Schumer and Jeffries.
So he's shutting the government down. Trump's shutting the government down?
He's shutting the government down because he's just not very smart. But, making a pronouncement that Democrats are acting in bad faith and blah, blah, blah. And he kind of forgot that by being in charge of everything, you're also then in charge of the shutdown.
I think we really do need to pay a longer visit on a different podcast to the theology of conservatives.
Yeah.
In which God is, in fact, all-powerful, but not responsible for anything.
And it's the same with, Barack Obama being feckless and also history's greatest villain.
Right. There's no need to try to sort out what they believe, because what they believe is an expedient of the moment and will change when the moment changes. So,
Yep. And folks, we are like you, eating glass and trying not to get distracted as the fascists try to steal our democracy. The news this last week has been a blizzard of garbage so thick that it's hard to keep your eye on what's really at stake, like the Epstein files. I hear Trump is all over the Epstein files.
I hear a lot these days about the Epstein files. It's not going away. I don't know why, but it's a very persistent story. And
did you know that there's this drug that causes autism? It's called Epstein-aminophen.
That's right. I've heard that. I owe
my colleague Capper for that one. Yeah.
Well, I heard Epstein causes dementia as well. So
big time.
Maybe that's why RFK is cutting all the research at the CDC, because they're finding out links between the Epstein files and all kinds of disorders and diseases.
Absolutely. So We had, speaking of evangelicals, Charlie Kirk's Horst Wessel funeral, also merch sale.
Oh, yeah.
Also Trump at the UN telling them all that they're going to hell. And then afterwards saying that his speech was very well received. Because everyone loves being told they're going to hell.
Mm-hmm.
And all, you longtime listeners know that we are an autism family.
Yes, we are. Proud autism family. Very proud autism family.
Proud autism family. That's right. And this anti-Tylenol quackery makes the days of bleach injections seem like wise advice from C. Everett Koop.
For all the latest medical poop, call Surgeon General C. Everett Koop. Koop-a-doo.
So today, in the interest of explaining why we are seeing and hearing what we are seeing and hearing, we're going to do some no fair remembering stuff, Drip Glass.
I love that no fair remembering stuff. And our story today begins, as so many stories do throughout history, on November 3rd, 1936, Blue Gal, when a young Richard Joseph Daley was first elected to office. That would be Richard J. Daley, future mayor of Chicago. He was elected at that time to the Illinois House of Representatives, the 9th District, and Blue Gal. Do you know what party the future mayor of Chicago belonged to during that election?
I bet you this is a trick question.
It is a trick question. He belonged to the Forward Party, which would not yet be founded for decades by Andrew Yang. It's quite amazing. No.
That's kind of like the Tylenol thing, where
it is.
Autism was first discovered 40 or 50 years before Tylenol was invented. So
sure, because time is, as we learned from the worst or second worst Star Trek, The Strange New Worlds we watched yesterday. Time just doesn't even do stuff. It moves back and forth. No one knows why. It's all very confusing. And we're going to do a whole thing tomorrow, I hope, with Bob Seska about that episode, because it was so very bad.
It's Star Trek, the Strange New Worlds needs a lot of help from in the writer's room. That's all I'm
They are seriously off track, but so are we. So let's get back to the political parties. As an expedient, Richard J. Daley was elected as a Republican in his first public office.
To the Illinois State House. Yeah,
to the Illinois Assembly, that's right.
Huh.
Pure opportunism, Blue Gal. Absolute pure political opportunism. The setup in Illinois at the time allowed him to take the place on the ballot of a recently dead Republican candidate named Dave Shanahan. Daley's name was not printed on the ballot due to the fact that Shanahan's death occurred so close to the election, but he was able to beat Shanahan's friend Robert E. Rogers to win. And after the election day, guess what? He went back to being a Democrat. So, yay! It's just one of the great ironies of Chicago history that Daley's first election, he was elected as a Republican.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right, let's jump ahead 24 years to 1960. Daley is into the second of what would be his 6 terms as mayor of Chicago. And the time has come for him to appoint a new head of the Chicago Health Commission. This is from Studs Terkel's interview with his friend, legendary Chicago columnist Mike Royko in 1971 on the occasion of the publication of Royko's book, Boss.
The nature of ghetto life and our own life, health itself, pollution, his attempt to appoint his wife's personal physician as health commissioner.
No, he did it. He appointed Dr. Morgan O'Connell, who was considered in the field of obstetrics, at best, a mediocre man. He wasn't even outstanding in his own field. The only reason he became anyone was because back 30 years ago or so, or more, he happened to be the doctor that young Richard J. Daley, then a state legislator, retained to deliver his children. And other than that, there was no reason for Morgan O'Connell ever to do anything but live out a career in the field of obstetrics and retire, which he did. And he was bored in retirement. And so Daley brought him back to Chicago and gave him a very high-level job in the health department. And at the time, it was a terrible health department. And when the job of he was the number 2 man in the health department. And then when there was a scandal and the number 1 man had to get out, instead of bringing in a man with a good, impeccable public health background, someone who understood the field, and this is a specialty. I mean, you would no more hire a obstetrician to run your public health department as you would to bring in a eye, ear, and nose, throat man to do brain surgery. I mean, this is a specialty. And but he made Morgan O'Connell head of the health department. And O'Connell, you see, the health department isn't a dramatic field. There'd be far more interest in who he'd put in charge of the building department, or who he'd put in charge of the police department or the fire department. The health department isn't something that we have that much direct contact with because we don't depend on public health clinics.
There's a marvelous phrase here, you haven't interrupted. This is, again, Mike's writing. It wasn't a surprise, public health not being something that can be seen from the airport buses, or photographed by a national magazine, or viewed as part of a skyline or lakefront image. So under O'Connell, the already scarce neighborhood public health clinics were roach-infested, filthy, understaffed. Puerto Rican children were arriving in Chicago without being met by an effective diphtheria program. And oversight that very nearly created an epidemic. But Mrs. Daley's favorite doctor had a title, and apparently O'Connell seemed wholly unaware of this. He says, as I go around the city, he says, I don't see any hungry people.
No. The man was really much like what was it? The fire commissioner that was appointed in The Last Hurrah. I think if he had to point to anything that almost bordered on the comic, it was putting in Morgan O'Connell as health commissioner, because he'd say things like, well, the pollution only bothers old people, and he just. He seemed unaware that there were public health problems, and Daley put him in. Because he's an old friend, and he was bored. He was bored with retirement, and that's the way he runs his city. This is his city. I mean, his city, like you could say of someone, his grocery store or his tavern. And a man runs a tavern. If he doesn't like a customer, he'll tell him to get out. You're a troublemaker. And he'll hire his own bartender. Well, this is his city. Daley runs this city the way people run their own small family businesses, and he brings in old friends and relatives, and the fact that it probably what keeps it from being comical is that when that health department probably in those days, because of the way it was run, did result in unnecessary misery and possibly deaths.
Yeah.
So now you're dealing with human lives.
Yeah. Now, the reason he bowed to pressure, and this pressure came, by the way, from some of his admirers, too, notably Dr. Eric Oldberg, who was astonished and stunned, a Daley admirer, stunned that he would appoint this patently incompetent man. But you write, O'Connell made the mistake. The reason Daley did not keep him in is not because of this, because he wasn't good at bookkeeping. Come back, Daley the bookkeeper again. That O'Connell botched up his budget-making procedures. For this, not for his medical shortcomings, he was ordered to retire by Daley. Always the meticulous bookkeeper.
Right. O'Connell, the medical people came to Daley, and pleaded with him, you can't do this, you got to get rid of this guy. And Daley was furious. He harangued them and raged at him, and sigged the inspectors on them to check their hospitals and make sure they had enough stairwells and things like that, which is, can cost a hospital a lot of money. And he then he got rid of O'Connell because O'Connell didn't follow proper procedure in his budget preparation and submission, which is about the last thing in the world that is of any real significance to the guy out there who's got TB. Or the woman who needs prenatal care in a ghetto.
And for you political science students out there, I can recommend Boss unreservedly. It is a masterpiece. It's like one of the essential books on American politics you just got to read. Now, when Daley was in office, there was an unofficial but very, very real kind of office of patronage. And at his peak, Daley directly controlled over 40,000 patronage jobs. Those are jobs where you do the work, the political work the mayor wants you to do when you want him to do them, or the ward boss or whoever. And he had the final say over hiring pretty much everybody else. Every day, it is my understanding, he'd get a dossier on his desk of everyone the city was thinking about hiring that day. And even if it only took him a second or two, he reviewed and approved or vetoed all of them. Right down to the garbage men, which is amazing. During his tenure, tributes to Daley became a ritual at city council meetings. In his book, Royko talks about how Lillian Shoutin' Lil Petrowski, committee person from the Southwest side, composed her particular flattery. Get the book and read the thing. It's really amusing. This is the way the Democratic Central Committee operated. They get together, whenever that was. In his book, Royko says to, vote on new ashtrays, something really trivial. But before the meeting started, the first 18 people would get up and praise Daley about how amazing he was, what a great mayor he was. Alderman Joe Kriska, who was a very, very dim bulb indeed, and never seemed to quite understand what people were debating, but really wanted to get in on the action. When things would get a little bit hot, he would jump up and shout, "God bless Mayor Daley, the greatest mayor in the history of the world," unquote. In the interview with Turkle, Royko says, quote, "I think the city has wanted a boss," unquote, which prompted Studs Terkel to ask a very important question. And this is a question very similar to the questions we have asked of the media and pundits and other people who have opinions hundreds of times on this podcast about specificity. Mm-hmm. Terkel asked, quote, "When you say the city, Mike, this is the question. Who is the city?" Unquote. Now, Isn't that a great question? Isn't that
And who isn't the city is another good question.
And we know who isn't the city.
Exactly. Yep.
And Mike Royko answers. This is a guy who knows Chicago better than anyone else. Quote, "What I mean is the people of influence. The people of influence in this city have wanted a boss, and they've had what they wanted. And when he's done, he'll leave a city that is in very terrible condition. The people will be hating each other even more and fearing each other even more," unquote.
Now, if you know nothing else about the mayor, you might know the quote that made Richard J. Daley famous around the world. He said it during the Chicago police riot of 1968. And if you watch the video, he is clearly reading from a prepared statement. Someone typed this up for him. Quote, "I said to him very emphatically and very definitely that an order be issued under your signature to shoot to kill any arsonist or anyone with a Molotov cocktail, and to maim or cripple anyone looting any stores in our city," unquote. He read that from a prepared statement.
Yeah.
And in Royko's book, Boss, Daley's press aide, Earl Bush, claimed this was all a misunderstanding and blamed it on the press.
Shocking.
Quote, "It was damn bad reporting," he said. "They should have printed what he meant, not what he said."
Top notch stuff.
And that is exactly what the White House correspondents are doing with Trump.
Yeah, you can see where we're going. You can see where we're headed. Yeah.
This approach to journalism, this is still quoting from Royko, "This approach to journalism would have been difficult in covering Daley since he is given to saying things like, 'Today our real problem is the future.' Once, while discussing anti-war dissent, he said, 'I don't see any more serious division in our country than we had in the Civil War and at other times.' And while telling a neighborhood rally about plans he had for their community, he said, 'We want to make Austin in the future what it has always been in the past.'"
Excellent stuff.
So printing what he meant and not what he said might have been journalism's greatest challenge, unquote. So yeah, I think we know exactly where we're going with this.
Yes. You're all ahead of us. You've all gotten ahead of us. So slow down, God's sakes. Because if you squint just a little bit, from the outside, the Trump regime can look an awful lot like the Daley administration operating at the federal level, at the federal government level. Instead of a fawning city council, you have a fawning congressional majority. Instead of a Cook County Democratic Central Committee trying to outdo each other, praising the boss to the heavens, you have Trump's cabinet trying to outdo each other, praising Il Duce. You have mopes and cranks being appointed to positions of power because the boss gets to do whatever the hell the boss wants to do. And when that person becomes too big of an embarrassment, a liability, they're fired, but the boss is never to blame. It's never his fault. Underlings must have betrayed him. It must have been bad people. You have the pay-to-play corruption that was rampant in Chicago. Companies who know their contracts depend on making the mayor happy. You have abuse of authority to punish anyone who tries to make trouble or won't bend the knee. You have way too many people in the media who go along with it, and a press secretary who will still scold the media for not being compliant enough. And of course, the people of influence go along with it all because it suits their agendas.
Yep. If you get your merger, that's all that matters, right?
All that matters. It doesn't, nothing else matters. My merger, my money, my stockholders, that's it. But Daley and Trump are in fact driven by completely different motives.
Absolutely. Daley understood the proportions of his power, what he could do, how power worked, what his limits were. And Daley succeeded by building from the bottom up. He attached himself to powerful political patrons and waited them out. He waited for them to retire or die. He understood the political machine by understanding the budget, every penny, where it went, and who controlled it. He learned how the machine worked so he could take it over and run it. And his people did not suffer under that.
No, exactly.
Daley didn't want to get rich, by the way. He didn't want to run for governor or president. Mayor of Chicago was the top job in the world to him. He wanted nothing more than to be the man on 5, which is the 5th floor of City Hall, and reign over Chicago like a pharaoh. And his son, by the way, was the same way.
Yeah. He used a different patronage system, but same ethos straight down the line.
Yeah. Yep. Trump, on the other hand, has the appetites of a gangster. Cheap, stupid, and brutal. Trump wants what Edward G. Robinson's Johnny Rocco wanted in Key Largo.
Well, listen, soldier. Thousands of guys got guns, but there's only one Johnny Rocco.
How do you account for it?
Well, he knows what he wants, don't you, Rocco?
Sure.
What's that?
Tell him, Rocco.
Well, I want,
He wants more, don't you, Rocco?
Yeah, that's it. More. That's right, I want more.
Will you ever get enough?
Will you, Rocco?
Well, I never have. No, I guess I won't. Do you know what you want?
Yes, and I had hopes once, but I gave them up.
Hopes for what?
A world in which there's no place for Johnny Rocco.
Trump is a bottomless pit of narcissism, greed, and grievances, which is why even though he has been elected to the most powerful job on earth twice, he still acts like an internet troll. Petty, bitter, incredibly thin-skinned, and seething with hate and resentment, raging about what they are doing to him, which is why the base loves him, because he's what they aspire to be, a racist internet troll with an army of goons to beat up people they don't like, and with economic weapons and nuclear weapons to scare everyone else and keep them in line.
Yeah, that's what they want, because that's who they are. They just can't get away with this shit, which is what they resent. They can't run around saying the N-word all day long. That might cost them their job. But when you're president, nobody can get to you. You can do whatever the fuck you want. The political machine Daley ran made sure that his people knew everyone in every neighborhood. That's almost literally true. Their local priest, the boxing club, all the cops, all the librarians, the teachers, the PTA, everybody. Does your mom need a little more coal during the winter? Does your worthless brother-in-law need a job? You got a turkey on Thanksgiving and a ham on Christmas and a friendly reminder from your ward boss of how good you've got it and what a great job the mayor's doing for you and who you should be voting for in the next election, while you might even have some literature handed to you about how you should vote and names you can just check off when you go in the booth. Daley was an organization man. He was very detail-oriented, learning how power operated at every level as he worked his way up, so that when he finally got the job he always wanted, he knew how to stay in power until the day he died.
Yep. Now, Trump arrived as an insurgent chaos agent, smashed the system, drained the swamp. Of course, since he took office, he's done the exact opposite. He is, by orders of magnitude, the most personally corrupt president in American history. The most aggressively anti-democratic, the most thuggish, the most swampy, and the biggest liar to ever sit in the Oval Office in all of history. And that's really saying something.
Mm-hmm.
His promises weren't a turkey at Thanksgiving, a ham on Christmas, and getting your relative a job propping up a shovel on the Dan Ryan highway. Those are tangible, deliverable, and memorable. Trump's promises are a wild mixture of ludicrous bullshit and bloodthirsty fascist vows to destroy MAGA's cultural enemies. You're going to get the greatest health care ever. Lower grocery prices, gas for $1. I'm going to lower drug prices by 1,000%, maybe even 1,500%.
Who knows? Anything's possible.
Yeah. Build a wall and make Mexico pay for it. Bring back coal. Why?
Because that's what suckers in West Virginia want to believe. Yeah, so he's going to bring back coal.
Yeah. Increase manufacturing jobs, which his predecessor did.
Yeah, both of them did. Both his Democratic predecessors increased manufacturing jobs. He has decreased them by I don't know how many, 70,000, something like that.
Thousands, yes. Yeah. He also promised unlimited jobs for Americans via the magic of mass deportation.
Yeah.
Trump has told so many absurd lies that to mark Donald Trump's second state visit to the United Kingdom, British TV Channel 4 broadcast a program titled Trump versus the Truth, which they described as the longest uninterrupted reel of untruths, falsehoods, and distortions ever broadcast on television. And they only aired 100 lies. There are thousands more that they left out. That was very disappointing to me.
Well, you got to move on to the weather and sports at some point.
At some point. Mm-hmm. What Trump did deliver was tax cuts for the rich and fuck everyone else twice. They fell for it 3 times. Yeah. His base went for it 3 different times. There was an unspoken but very clearly understood promise that you might call it what we used to call or still call in this podcast, a load-bearing promise that keeps the entire machine running between Daley and the ethnic white voters of Chicago who put him in office 6 times. And that promise was stability, predictability. Everyone understood this is how the system works and this is how you get ahead. It was in its own way very, very conservative. Keep things steady. Keep them running pretty much the way they are. Don't change too much. Do a lot of building, but don't change the structure very much. And through it all, Daley remained a neighborhood man. Chicago is a city with, I think, 77 different neighborhoods, all of them distinct. And there's a great deal of reverence for sticking to your neighborhood and knowing where you came from. He was not openly looting the treasury or flaunting his ability to force people to fill his pockets. Instead, he lived in the same Bridgeport house he and his family had lived in for I don't know how many generations. And there was never anything gold-plated in that house except maybe a portrait of the Blessed Virgin. Of the Blessed Virgin, yes.
You're allowed to splurge a little bit on that because it's for the church and for the Blessed
church. Virgin. It comes from the church, yes.
And every day on his way to his office, Daley would stop by the church to pray, and he wasn't doing it for show. That's how he was
went
raised.
To Mass in the morning. Yeah. He did. Yeah.
I'm not saying he was a great guy. He was a corrupt guy. He was a pharaoh. He was a monster in his own right. But the two people are so different from each other.
Yeah.
But they look really similar unless you start to notice the motivations of each.
Yeah. Well, and you've told the story several times of, some woman complaining about trash removal or snow removal on her street. And he instantly knows the street and the neighborhood and that it's a WPA road.
Yeah, that's it. That's his son. His son was raised in the same mold. His son was by his side the whole time. And he knows who the boxing coach is and who the parish priest is and knows the whole thing. And the same kind of people showing up to budget hearings praising him as a great man of Chicago, a man who loves the city. And there's no doubt that he did in his own, the dad, in his own incredibly racist way.
Racist, corrupt, violent.
Yeah.
He was not above using violence in 1968 against the hippies.
But can I tell you one quick story?
Sure.
He was also incredibly crafty, politically crafty. I forget the name of the gentleman who came to him, a Jewish gentleman who said, I believe there is you could have a Jewish person run for office from Illinois and they'd win for the state assembly. And that was very, very radical idea. And he said, and this guy wanted to be that guy. And he said, I'll go downstate and spend my own money and I'll find out. I'll do a survey. I'll do my own survey. Guy goes downstate. He surveys everything. He talks to people. He comes back. He says, I was right. I got the numbers right here. There is a willingness downstate. There's enough voters downstate that you could actually elect a Jewish person to the state legislature. And Daley said, thank you, and nominated a completely different Jewish person to the office. I think Sid Yates got the nomination
because
he just took the guy's research and said, "Thanks, piss off now.
Yeah,
thanks for the free research.
You're not my people. You're not my guy.
I got my guy over here, but thank you for showing me a way to get him elected."
Mm-hmm.
But that's that is Machiavellian political savvy, which is something Trump doesn't have. He has low reptilian cunning, but he doesn't understand how to deal with people.
Yep. So Trump's promise to his base was the opposite of the going to see the Blessed Virgin at church every morning.
Stability and predictability, right.
And stability. No, he has chaos every day. Revolution draining the swamp by slaying the left's culture war dragons and making woke a dirty word. And underneath every bit of it is a war on the future.
Right. Hates the future.
Hates the future. This is about the past.
Right.
And making sure whites are in charge the way they were in the past. We're going to make America great again. For whom? For white conservatives.
Yeah. Who's the city? Who's the city? No.
Yeah.
Who are we talking about? White, evangelical, Christian, straight men.
Yep. Right. Yep. Right. And somehow Trump was going to make the lives of the MAGA meatheads materially better, which of course never happened. In fact, the opposite happened. By every metric, the lives of MAGA mopes, particularly those in red states, are materially worse now than they were last December.
Mm-hmm.
I'm serious about that. Red states are worse off in 10 months.
And by the way, just wait until those Medicaid cuts kick in.
Yeah. I'm very, very grateful that the Democrats in the House and Senate have added that to the line in the sand, restoring Medicaid cuts. Yeah. And Trump got mad. He said, well, you're taking away my fund for rural hospitals. Yeah, because we won't need it if you restore the Medicaid cuts. That was just a sap, that was a Band-Aid on a gaping wound.
Yeah, well, that was
threw in there.
He wants to slap his name on the building, say, I built this hospital for you.
Yeah, right.
And Medicaid funding will build the hospital.
Right.
And keep it maintained and keep it up and running. The stuff you want to cut, you gruesome son of a bitch.
And one of the things that made my son a successful adult as a person with autism is being on Medicaid.
Yeah. Yeah.
And being able to have medication and specialists and therapists and what he needed. When I was a poor single mom, I was able to get what he needed so he could go to school. And the funding of the schools for programs for him and the funding of Medicaid to make sure he had what he needed. And Trump doesn't give a shit.
No. He wants it all gone.
Well, he wants to suck up to the nut jobs that follow RFK Jr. So yeah, red states are materially worse off now than they were not only in December, but under the last two Democratic administrations. A lot of money got tossed at West Virginia.
Yeah.
By Biden.
Money that could have been much better spent here in Illinois, frankly. Yeah.
And so these Democratic presidents that had to spend most of their time digging the country out from under Republican catastrophes, whether it was the 2008 crash or COVID, and then they had to face nonstop Republican opposition to cleaning up the mess.
Mm-hmm.
Now MAGA controls everything. And as I said, you've got all three branches of government plus the Supreme Court.
Those are the three branches of government.
Well, the House, you're right. That are the three branches of government. But you've got the House and the Senate and the White House and the Supreme Court.
Yeah. And you've got the Washington
Post. And now
Post
you're looking for the rapture to get away from the responsibility for how things are.
And now you've got Washington Post and CBS and Disney.
ABC, and you've got Sinclair.
Yeah.
You've got all of that. And everything's getting worse in a hurry. But having committed themselves body and soul to a lying racist madman, MAGA have locked themselves and the rest of us inside a burning building that they themselves set on fire.
Yeah, they did.
And they have convinced themselves that the answer to the problem is to throw on more gasoline. Let's tell the United Nations that they're all going to hell.
Great plan.
Great plan.
Great plan.
More gas on the fire to save themselves. Trump and his henchmen now have to keep the MAGA mob at full boil all the time, which is why the reaction from the right to Charlie Kirk's murder was so very much like this.
Do you believe in the Virgin Mary?
Sir, no, sir!
Well, Private Joker, I don't believe I heard you correctly.
Sir, the private said no, sir!
Why, you little maggot, you make me want to vomit! You goddamn communist heathen, you had best sound off that you love the Virgin Mary, or I'm gonna stomp your guts out. Now, you do love the Virgin Mary, don't you?
Sir, negative, sir!
Private Joker, are you trying to offend me?
Sir, negative, sir!
It is as incomprehensible to the MAGA rubes that anyone not agree that Charlie Kirk was a good Christian man, a sainted man of God, a martyr, equal perhaps to one of Jesus' disciples, as it was predictable that the fascist right would turn his funeral into a full horsed vessel 2 minutes hate freak show, complete with pyrotechnics, merch chyrons, and a guy pushing a giant cross around on wheels from Home Depot.
Mm-hmm.
The wheels on the cross go round and round.
Just like in the Bible.
I just about threw up when I saw that.
Yeah.
He put the heavy cross he was carrying around on wheels. That says everything you need to know about American evangelical Christians.
Yeah.
Because it's never supposed to make you uncomfortable. Your faith must never make you uncomfortable. Yeah. You're not perfect. You're just forgiven. So, this cross is really heavy. I'm just going to put some wheels under it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the cross of Jesus Christ you're supposed to be carrying around, you dipshit. And of course, what would a fascist rally be without speeches from the dear leader? Quote, Charlie Kirk truly was. He was a missionary with a noble spirit and a great, great purpose. He did not hate his opponents. He wanted the best for them. That's where I disagreed with Charlie. I hate my opponent, and I don't want the best for them. Unquote.
That first part of that sounds like the generic thing Trump says about every historical figure, like Frederick Douglass, who's a lot of people are saying a lot of things about him now, that he has no idea what to say, so he just says, yeah, great guy, great purpose, had some good stuff to say, and Constitution and Civil War, because he doesn't, this is just shit he says.
Yeah.
Put it in front of him, and it's the Hallmark greeting card, but you got to throw in at the end, I hate people, and I want to destroy them.
I think it's the thing that his press office is writing for him to read.
Yeah.
And then he has to toss in an anecdote or a statement about himself that is always ugly.
Right. Well, and that's when my understanding is the UN speech, the teleprompter quit.
Oh.
And that's why, and he started riffing about immigrants causing climate change.
Yeah. And there's such a thing now as climate cooling. The scientists know the climate is cooling, and
I'm melted down on the international stage. And again, the thing is, MAGA people don't have the organ or the lobe in their brain making them capable of embarrassment.
Right.
Because if they did, they would die of embarrassment every time Trump opens his mouth. But they don't give a shit. Anyway,
and their media isn't going to cover this speech.
Oh God, no.
They'll show a picture of Trump and a short clip of people clapping, and that'll be it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we have to talk about Obergruppenführer Stephen Miller, who used the funeral exactly, and I mean exactly, as Joseph Goebbels had used Horst Wessel's funeral, as a fascist rallying cry against unspecified forces of wickedness and evil, and referred to the stadium crowd. We are not making this up. He referred to the stadium crowd as the storm.
The storm.
A 1932 speech given by Nazi propagandist Joseph Goebbels was entitled "The Storm is Coming." The others may lie, slander, and pour their scorn on us. Their political days are numbered, Goebbels said. In his own remarks, Miller said, the day that Charlie died, the angels wept, but those tears have been turned into fire in our hearts. And that fire burns with a righteous fury that our enemies cannot comprehend or understand. Mein Führer, I can walk.
I can walk.
Now, in the Atlantic magazine, Jonathan Chait is one of many people who point out the irony, which is so thick you could drive a truck across it. Quote, Republicans have never stopped complaining that Hillary Clinton once described a portion of Trump's base as a basket of deplorables. Yet over the weekend, the president's most powerful advisor depicted half the country as worthless, irredeemably wicked, and fated for destruction, unquote.
Yeah. I think we can agree, Blue Gal, the problem is both sides. No.
Well, this is what goes on nightly on Laura Ingram's show, too.
Oh, yeah. Well, I know that. You know that.
Yeah.
All good.
Yeah.
But it really is, on the one hand, you have campus speech codes, which are terrible. On the other hand, you have the president of the United States standing up at a funeral and wishing destruction on his enemies, and his chief advisor calling up the spirit of Joseph Goebbels to destroy his enemies. They're pretty much the same thing. And that's the context for all the stuff we've been talking about today, because Republican Party is incapable of delivering on any of the ludicrous promises, the hundreds of ludicrous promises they made to the bigots and imbeciles that elected them. So they have no choice but to keep doubling down on fury and spectacle. As part of that project, the American Fascist Party is rushing to turn white nationalist podcaster Charlie Kirk into some kind of a hybrid between a martyred saint and a Confederate monument. This is from National Public Radio. Quote, Illinois lawmaker proposes Charlie Kirk Day in the state. State Senator Neil Anderson, Republican Andalusia, has introduced Senate Bill 2694 to permanently honor the life and legacy of Illinois native Charlie Kirk, who was murdered on September 10th, 2025, while speaking to a group of students at a Utah college campus. Charlie Kirk, a man of strong faith and devoted husband and father, dedicated his life to fostering open and honest dialogue, said Senator Anderson. He stood unafraid in challenging prevailing narratives and consistently did so through peaceful demonstrations rooted in the belief that free speech is worth protecting. His voice resonated far beyond Illinois, but he never forgot his home state. The legislation would amend the State Commemorative Dates Act to recognize September 10th each year as Charlie Kirk Day in Illinois. If approved, it would be listed among dates that recognize people or events. It would not be an official holiday, unquote. Not yet.
So get your puke bag ready. Back to NPR. Quote, much as Martin Luther King Jr. Day reminds us of the transformative power of one individual's fight for justice and equality, Charlie Kirk Day would stand as a testament to the enduring importance of free speech and open debate in our society. Jimmy Kimmel would like a word.
Yeah.
While their causes were different, both lives underscore the truth that courage and conviction can inspire generations.
Yeah.
Unquote.
Yeah. Lashing Charlie Kirk to Martin Luther King Jr.
Martin Luther King Jr.
It's just I didn't think they could go that low, but there they are. Also, to this from Raw Story, quote, Charlie Kirk statues would be mandated on every campus with red state's new legislation. One Republican state lawmaker in Oklahoma now wants to require every public university in the state to erect a statue to slain far-right activist Charlie Kirk. On Friday, Jeffrey Sachs, an assistant professor at Nova Scotia's Acadia University, called attention to a bill by Oklahoma State Senator Shane Jett, Republican, and Dana Preto, Republican also, that would mandate every public university in the Sooner State build a Charlie Kirk Memorial Plaza. A lot of urinals that are unmemorialized there in Oklahoma. Just saying. The bill, which has been filed as a Senate Bill number 1187 and does not yet have a formal name, would force universities to set aside a portion of real estate in a visible public location like the quad, student union, or main entrance pathways to maximize public awareness and utilization.
I'm all for that, Driftglass, if it includes at the base of the statue of Charlie Kirk quotes from him about black airline pilots.
Yeah.
And affirmative women who are black and black people.
About Joe Biden.
Joe Biden. Yeah.
Senate Bill 1187 would also make it a requirement for schools to erect a statue of both Kirk and his family, and to include a plaque honoring Kirk as, quote, a voice of a generation, modern civil rights leader, vocal Christian, martyr for truth and faith, and free speech advocate, unquote.
As I said on Blue Sky, he's a modern civil rights leader because he got shot. They're really telling on themselves with that one. Or to quote Bill Shakespeare, 'Tis too much proved that with devotion's visage and pious action we do sugar o'er the devil himself.
Mm-hmm.
So let's take a look at one of hundreds or similar or worse quotes from Charlie Kirk, man of faith. And this is what should go on the base of his statues.
Mm-hmm.
Quote, Joe Biden is a bumbling, dementia-filled, Alzheimer's, corrupt tyrant who should honestly be put in prison and or given the death penalty for his crimes against America, unquote. Put that at the base of the statue.
Mm-hmm.
That's from Charlie Kirk Show, July 24th, 2023.
Yeah, and that was standard issue right-wing points, which he was just, that was his thing.
Yeah.
A Pez dispenser of those things. And of course, you know, man of faith is one thing, but let's not forget Charlie Kirk, the free speech champion. This is from the Chronicle of Higher Education. Quote, Charlie Kirk's watch list made some professors' life a living hell. For Tobin Miller Shearer, a professor of history at the University of Montana who had received death threats after being placed on a Turning Point USA target list, news of Charlie Kirk's murder on a college campus in Utah prompted a flood of emotions. I cried for our nation, for what this will mean for his family, and for all the harm he did in his life. For all of us, he said. It was a horrible moment in all its complexity. After those threats, Shearer moved his class on the history of white supremacy to a secret location with a campus police officer on guard. I did not want any threats on my life to ripple out and affect my students, said Shearer, who heads Montana's program in African American Studies. Shearer was one of hundreds of professors whose lives had unexpectedly intersected with Kirk's when their names ended up on a Turning Point USA's Professor Watch List. Not too fucking ominous.
No.
Kirk created the watch list in 2016 as a signature product of his new nonprofit. Its mission, it says, is to expose and document college professors who discriminate against conservative students and advance their leftist propaganda in the classroom. It's based on published news stories about radical behavior by professors, but is also informed by recordings leaked by students and tips from the public. The publicly searchable database has grown to more than 300 professors who group into categories, including diversity, equity and inclusion, climate alarmist, feminism, abortion, terror supporter, racial ideology, and, of course, LGBTQ, unquote.
This is from the Baltimore Banner, quote, after the conservative activist and founder of Turning Point USA was assassinated Wednesday, some of the professors he targeted worry for their own safety and feel anxious about the climate of distrust the 31-year-old sowed among young people. I feel less safe after Kirk's murder, said a history professor at Johns Hopkins University. I think that his death, like his life, ripens murderous fruit, unquote.
As most of you probably know, similar articles have appeared all over the country, including the Chicago Sun-Times. You can look it up if you like. Long lists of professors who are feeling threatened, who were threatened, who were terrified, who were on a fucking watch list, targeted by this organization.
For their speech.
For their speech.
Yep.
And we could go on and on, but we're pretty sure you understand the point. This is all of the same piece as, for example, former Confederate states during the Civil Rights era, putting up monuments to traitors and some incorporating the Confederate flag into their state flag as a giant fuck you to the civilized world's attempt to drag their bigoted backwards asses into the 20th century. It's also of a piece with Grover Nordquist's Ronald Reagan Legacy Project. Ever wonder why you see Reagan's name everywhere?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Well, the goal of that project was to slap up Reagan's name all over the place so that every county in the country would have at least one prominent landmark named after Ronald Reagan. It's also of a piece with Trump awarding Rush fucking Limbaugh the Presidential Medal of Freedom, which was the equivalent of pinning a halo on a sewer rat. In it, there was Donald Trump, President of the United States, during the State of the Union speech, awarding the highest civilian honor in the land to a monster whose life's work was the slow, methodical poisoning of the American mind. And when Limbaugh finally kicked off in 2021, the Beltway's very serious people and the entire Republican media complex went into full sainthood mode, solemnly concluding that he was some kind of sage, a patriotic conservative voice, and champion of the truth, when he was actually, what he left behind was a half-century-long audio snuff film. Cruelty as entertainment, industrial-grade racism, pig-eyed misogyny, gay bashing, and the endless flogging of whatever half-baked conspiracy floated up that morning from the fetid wingnut fever swamp. It's also of a piece with Trump and Hegseth re-renaming military bases after Confederate traitors, reversing the trend of taking down monuments to Confederate traitors, and the Biden administration removing the names of Confederate traitors from those same military bases.
And taking Harvey Milk's name off of an aircraft carrier, too.
Yeah, the whole thing. Going through, national parks are taking down plaques about race.
Yep.
Native American. They're just stripping American history blind of all the stuff they don't want to think about, don't want to talk about, don't want anyone to remember.
Yep. There's a lot of truth in what Napoleon once said: history is a lie agreed upon. And the process by which history becomes agreed upon and passed down the generations by the active efforts of those who codify it in monuments, street names, songs, official days of memory and observation, and the texts of history books as yet unwritten. For example, we mentioned him before, the history of Horst Wessel, the 22-year-old Nazi goon who, in 1930, was living with a former prostitute. Their landlord, who had communist sympathies, got into a dispute with Wessel. The landlord's friends confronted Wessel, and during the altercation, Wessel was shot. He died of his wounds a few weeks later. It was ugly and personal and linked to Berlin's underworld, but Nazi propagandists laundered it into the death of a martyred saint. The Horst Wessel song became a Nazi anthem and was elevated to near sacred status, second only to the German national anthem during the Third Reich. His funeral was staged as a massive propaganda spectacle. And you can see the lines we're drawing here.
Mm-hmm.
And had the Nazis not been crushed by the Allies, that propagandized fascist history would be what American children would be studying in history classes today.
That's why we do what we do.
Yeah.
The whole no fair remembering stuff is not just fun for us, which it is, not just an academic exercise, which it is, not just it's providing a context for what is being erased, what they're trying to erase from our memories about what this country was and is and what it could be. Mm-hmm. Because if you control the past, Orwell said, who controls the past controls the future.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they're desperately trying to rewrite history and canonize people who are terrible human beings who died tragically as saints and martyrs and champions of civil rights, which is bullshit, 100% bullshit.
Thank you, Driftglass. And I want to end today with a letter from a Canadian listener. I've been listening to your podcast for a while now. It's the one I look forward to the most. Out of the several political type podcasts I peruse, I found you from Bob Cesca. And I'm so glad he sent me your way. And by the way, we will be on Bob Cesca tomorrow, September 24th. So be sure to check that out. Mm-hmm. Your recent podcast about Ezra Klein following the shooting death of Charlie Kirk just clarified all the jumbled thoughts I had in my brain about this. I couldn't understand some of the wailing and hand-wringing, the lionization of what Kirk was about from some of these people. Really? Your outrage at Klein's article was my outrage too, just expressed so much better. Honestly, my first thought when I had heard Charlie Kirk had been shot, before I knew how severe it was, at least he won't be able to spread his hate speech for a while. Maybe an uncharitable thought, but there you go. I was actually pleased with myself when I did actually feel a pang of sadness when they announced he had died. I guess I'm not a psychopath after all, was my feeling. A human feeling bad that another human had been killed. Anyway, that's not the only reason for this email. I just wanted to comment again how much I look forward to your podcast and how they can make me laugh and feel better and say lots of the things I'm feeling. I'm not even an American. Proud Canadian here in a fricking red province with the worst premier I think we've had. Sigh. And by the way, you can put American liquor back on our shelves here, but many, many, many of us aren't buying it. Every time Blue Gal screeches, I'm an independent, I just bust a gut laughing. So damn funny. I take you on walks, and I'm sure people think I'm crazy for giggling away to myself. Okay, you got me. I am going to join the coffee club and send you some money. I just love you guys and hope you can keep sane in these times. I at least can say, not my country, those poor crazy Americans, et cetera, et cetera. You're definitely worth contributing to. Please keep up your good work, and thanks so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was sweet of you to write.
Mm-hmm.
We appreciate it. So feel free to write to both of us at proleftpodcast@gmail.com. Even if you're from Canada, we love hearing from you.
Yeah, it's all free. It's all email. It's all free.
It's all email. Just send us an email. And be aware that if you write to us at any of our addresses, we reserve the right to read your email or U.S. Postal Service Go Postal Union's letter on the air unless you say otherwise. I did exchange back and forth with this person from Canada who did not want to be identified, and so we did not identify them. We can work it out.
We can do it. We can negotiate. We can come to an agreement, an accord.
Yes.
Another thing you could do for us is share the show on social media. That's how we grow our show. So if you love this podcast, try to get someone else to listen to it too. Give them a couple listens. And if we're not for them, that's fine. We're not for everybody, but we find that once people listen to what we have to say, we get a lot more followers and we get angry letters saying, oh, shut up and go away. And thank you for doing that.
Hey, Driftglass, how are the Internet Kitties doing this week?
Well, look out, this week, the Internet Kitties honor the 2025 autumnal equinox by sleeping 10 hours during the day and 10 hours at night.
Let's think about living. Think about living. Let's think about loving. Think about loving. Let's think about the hooping and the hopping and the popping and the lovey-dovey. Let's forget about the wine and the crying, the shooting and the dying and the fellow and the switchblade knife. Let's think about living. Let's think about life.
Professional Left podcast is recorded under a Creative Commons license. Copyright 2024-25, GGBG Productions.